for the longest time, if you wanted to do comedy, you had to go to the Strip, and if you were on the Strip, then you had to be good.
Right.
So it was really tough, but it's getting much better. It started getting better around the Joey Coy era. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have, yeah.
And I remember when he first started there, and he came. I got to work with him as well off the Strip because as much time as I spent on the Strip, everybody wanted to get on. I wanted to get off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
you wanted to come to Maine.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. Well, I came here initially because I heard that Bob Marley lived here.
Yes.
And my wife and I are huge fans. And but I haven't seen him yet. And I didn't even know he was still alive.
Yeah, he totally is.
Yeah, well, I love his music, so I'm looking forward to seeing one of his shows. Maybe you can go with me.
Maybe I can.
Yeah, but no, I really like Maine, and I think that a lot of comics don't really understand what they really have here. I mean,
it is. It's a growing scene with a lot of passionate people behind it. Mm-hmm. What I've been saying about Maine comedy since I got into it 6 years ago. We had the Comedy Connection when I first started, and then that closed down. In like 6 months after I started comedy, the Comedy Connection closed, and that was like the hub of comedy for Maine. That's where all the national headliners came in, and that's where everybody's trying to get in. Hitting the open mics so they can perform at the Comedy Connection. And then that closed, and then there was nothing. There was just a bunch of open mics and a couple of rooms that people booked. And now there's rooms in Lewiston, Auburn. There's rooms in Portland. There's some in what do we have? Bangor, I think. So comics are they've taken it onto themselves to keep this scene growing and thriving, and to provide opportunities for people that wouldn't otherwise have them. And it's working out. I think it's pretty cool to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're not just part of it. You're a main part of it. I mean, Maine, with Maine Event Comedy and everything. So you're also giving venues for these fine young comics to start out in. So you're definitely one of them, part of the pie chart here, a big part of it.
Well, I'm trying, man. I'm trying. Part of that is providing opportunities for younger comics on their way up, and then having venues where I can book people like you and people that are national acts.
Okay,
I can bring them to small theaters and have a couple of venues out there where newer comedians will hopefully want to work their way into.
Right, absolutely.
So I think I have a nice. It's a good variety.
It is, and where you have some of the guys, the veterans, and mixing them with some of these young cats, it's good for both, because the older cats get to learn something from the newer guys, and maybe because the newer guys, let's face it, are normally the most motivated.
Sure.
I mean, I've seen, I think the most growth in comedy is in the first 2 years. And then I've seen comics 10 years later, and they're destroying in 2 years. I mean, if you really hit it up, you could be really strong, almost maybe some even headlining by that time. Yeah. And then 10 years later, it's the same act.
Yeah.
So I think it's great, but it's great for the young guys or girls, young guys or gals to be able to also work with guys like you, who are, I mean, you're great, and at every show, just about every show, but now you're branching out, you can't be at all of them. Right. But also to work with some headliners that have been around, so they get to learn something too.
Yeah, it's cool, because when I put my schedules together, I try to book the seasons, like 3-month blocks, and I'll just start started recently, and book September, October, November, and I'm reaching out. And I have an online form now where people can let me know which rooms they want to do and which dates they're available and all that, which makes it a lot easier for both of us.
I noticed that.
So I don't have to chase people down, and I get a sense of who's interested in performing at my shows. So yeah, that's been working out great. And there's a lot of new names that are popping up. A lot of newer comics and headliners that I'm going to be working with throughout the next few months into December.
That's
I'm
great.
Pretty excited about.
Yeah, I noticed that there's comics that now, of course, I'm new here, so a lot of these guys or gals that I see, I just assume that they've been doing it for a long time, and I find out no, I mean, because they seem so just in the scene, like they're already that, like they arrived a long time ago, but things seem to move. Maybe you guys go by seasons here. We go by by years on the West Coast.
Well, that was
so it's like that was many seasons ago.
No. I said seasons. That's how I book.
Oh no, I didn't mean seasons in that way either. I meant it's like I almost feel like people grow quicker here in a way. You would think it would be like that in the big city, but it's like, I mean, they're already plugged in, and they're doing it.
Yeah, I think there are some opportunities. You have to go to port. I think if you want to grow as a comic in Maine, I said there wasn't a hub for comedy in Maine,
right.
which is true. But I think if you want to grow as a comedian, you have to go to Portland.
Right.
That's where the open mics are. They do have some great rooms there, but that's where the open mics are. You can get on stage Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And there may be something on Thursday,
right.
But that's what I did when I first started. There was nothing in Lewiston, Auburn for comedy,
right.
Absolutely
nothing. Yeah, that's what I mean.
So I was every chance I had, every time that somebody turned on a microphone that I heard about that, I was driving to Portland trying to get there and work out material, and that's what you see with, like you said, the people who are newer are the most motivated. And the people that you see at the open mics, especially, if they're 6 months to a year in still doing open mics, they've been bitten by that bug, and they're going to grow, and they're going to be really, really good.
But what I was saying is, so a lot of these guys, I just imagine, and I've seen some of them, and they certainly look like they've been doing it, and we've talked about it here with some of our guests, like Julie Pullen. I mean, I would have never. I mean, you could have fooled me if you said she was been doing comedy for under a year. I mean, she's so great, but then you find out she's got an improv background and all these things, and I think that's the same case for a lot of these guys I've seen. Or I mean, let's face it, if you're a comedian, you didn't just decide to do comedy 6 months ago. You've been working on it.
Yeah, and I think the closet. It's something that's in you. That it's a creative outlet.
Right.
Just like any type of art. If you're a writer, if you're a painter, if you're a musician, it's a creative outlet that's in you, and you need to get it out. And some people don't know it until they try it. But what's interesting to me is, like, you'll watch a group that has just taken a workshop, and they'll have like a graduation show, and say there's 12 people in the workshop. 11 people out of that workshop are going to go, okay, I did it.
Right.
Bucket list. I'll move on to the next thing. And then you're going to have that one person who's like, who was me at my workshop. 5 minutes into the first workshop, I was like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
I found my people. I never knew how to get started in comedy. It's like, I mean, what do you do? Wait, how do you get started? What is the process here? The only comedy I've been exposed to are people in theaters that are sold out. I just, when I was younger.
Right.
So I had no clue. I had no clue of an open mic scene. I had no clue about comedy workshops or anything like that. And then I was watching the news, and there was this comedy workshop that was being advertised on the news, and I'm like, it was in Portland. I'm like, well, I'm totally going to take that, So I did, and we were just all sitting around, and the instructor was just talking about stand-up, and he goes, okay, let's go around the room. Who are your favorite comedians? Who inspires you? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting there going, where has this place been all my life? This is exactly what I want to do. So yeah, and then we started writing jokes and critiquing and all that, I was totally into that as well, and then performing.
And then you got up there and you said, wow, I am good at this.
And that introduced me to the open mic scene, and it introduced me to the people involved in comedy, people who book rooms and all that, and then it felt like a pretty rapid progression. Right.
Well, you're also, Mark, we've talked about this kind of stuff, but you're also a businessman, and I think that you're organized.
I try, yeah.
Yeah, you're the opposite of me, and that's why we're a good team for the podcast. But you're, so right off the bat, you were able to also create your own environment to perform, and your growth probably came really fast because while you were booking them, you're emceeing these guys. You're emceeing, so you're getting a lot of stage time. And, you've mentioned to me before that how important you think when you're first starting out that you get up and you MC. Don't skip that step, right?
Yeah, I think when you have newer comics and you like if you were to have a group tonight for your contest and
Right.
you were to ask every one of those comics, when do you want to go up, and say there's a field of 10, I want to go up third, I want to go up fourth, I
Of
want to go up
course.
fifth. They want to go up in the sweet spot,
Right, right.
where the audience has been warmed up, but yet they're not too tired
Of
at the end of
course.
the show. Just about everybody's going to say that.
Right.
When I got into it, I was one of those guys who, if there was an open mic list, I would sign up first.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if there was a show, I wouldn't volunteer to host any shows that weren't mine, because I didn't think I thought that seemed a little weird, a little presumptuous. But with my shows, I would host every one of them, because I saw how wrong some of these shows could be,
Right.
with a host that wasn't really out of his environment
Right.
or her environment. Didn't know how to host. I've seen hosts go up in between comics and do 15 minutes, which is it's like
You do your time up front.
yeah,
then
and
it's bam,
that's always
bam.
been my philosophy. As a host, you check your ego at the door. The show is not about you.
Right.
You do your time up front. You do your job. You entertain the crowd. Get them in a good position to bring up the first comedian, and you bring up every comedian with a blank slate. I've been brought up. I've been brought up on this line before, where someone had just done a dick joke. The host had done a dick joke,
Okay.
and he goes, "Hey, speaking of dicks, here's your next comedian, Mark Turcotte." So now I'm fairly new at this, and I'm sitting, waiting for my turn to go on, and I'm going through my set. I know what I'm going to open with, and now I have to address this. I've just been called a dick. So that's what I mean by bringing them up on a clean
Wow.
slate, because a lot of people, they already have in mind what they want to say, what they want to open with, what they want to do. So yeah, to me, it's like you get 1, maybe 2 credits, maybe none. A lot of times when people ask me, what do you want me to say about you? Just my name.
Speaking of dicks, are you?
You know.
Hopefully, you guys are friends now. But now, here's the thing, because on the West Coast, and even when I started, it came around to emceeing and stuff, a show, because that's when you do if you get into the bigger clubs, like especially the ones in Boston. First of all, it takes a couple of years to even get in them, just to MC.
Yeah.
You're not going straight to headliner unless you're already a headliner and they bring you in. So my thing is, and I still kind of feel this way, but there's ways to do this, and when you're emceeing is not the place to necessarily do it, but you also want to get to that feature spot and eventually to that headliner spot. So you're making enemies if you're killing too much, because headliners don't want to follow you.
Right.
And like you said, if you do too much time and you and it's all about you, then you bring the headliner up and it's not good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want to be a professional MC and be respectful to the entertainers that you're hosting for. So what's your take on that? Growing as a comic to get so because I think there's also a time when you can be I don't know if it's a statistic or I think it is a statistic where people get stuck in that MC mode because they're like, so and so is really a good MC, let's hire him for that. So and so, I've seen guys and they don't grow. Sure, they're getting better and they're good at MCing, but they're not. There's a time to let that go and say, sorry, Mark, I'm not MCing anymore. If you want to feature me, I'm on the next level.
Yeah, that I never necessarily agreed with. When I don't think the comedian gets to decide what level they're on.
Right.
I've seen that a bunch, where after 2 years, somebody closes a show and they're like, "Oh, I'm a headliner now."
Right. There's a difference.
You got 20 minutes.
Yeah, you're closing a show.
You're not a headliner. Yeah. I've always.
You're the last guy.
Yeah, that's always. It's been a little funny to me how that progresses, but the way I look at it and the way I've progressed is I started hosting shows, which I think is the best way. It's the fastest way to progress as a comedian, in my opinion, because you're coming up to a cold room. Mm-hmm. You're the first guy on the mic,
right?
And you have to welcome the crowd. You have to warm that crowd up. You have to get them laughing. It's a lot of pressure, and at the same time, it's the fastest way to progress. And then after that, you're gonna get booked on shows. Mm-hmm. And my philosophy is, if I'm on a 3 or 4 comic show and I'm going first or second, I want to make the booker regret that decision. It's just a little game
Right.
I play. I want to. I don't. You never want to make it difficult for the guy behind you. You don't want to bury him, but you want to do the best set you can.
Absolutely.
And if the guy coming up behind you is like, God damn, I didn't know, Mark was this good. He's been putting work in. I can't follow that.
Then it just kind of, it naturally happens.
It
Because
organically
they're
happens, absolutely.
Like, Mark's ready.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, he's not doing the same 5 minutes
Yeah.
every time he hosts
Yeah.
the show. Every time it seems it's different. Let's see, 5, 10, 15, 20,
Yeah.
25, 30. Oh, Mark's got 30 minutes now. Let's feature him. Maybe it's like that.
I've run into that, like after hosting for a few years, especially in the same rooms. There's pressure to constantly come up with new material, and that's what I've been trying to do. And I try to give a completely different set for each room, especially if it's a monthly room, and all that. So then after that, you build up an abundance of material, and once you can put it together, and you can have your chunks and put them together in a decent, 45 to an hour set. And then somebody who's never seen you do that before sees you headline a show. It's like, wow, I've only known you as a host. I didn't know you could do that.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you haven't. I've gotten better.
Exactly.
If you host, if I take someone who's just graduated a workshop and I say, well, you're going to host every main event comedy show for the next year. Mm-hmm. I bet you that whoever that is going to be a goddamn solid comedian after that year. Right.
Absolutely.
But that's getting back to your question. That's the way I've looked at it. I've never walked into a room and say, well, I don't host anymore. Well, I'm not an opener. I'm a feature. Well, that has never crossed my mind. It's always been, it's going to happen organically. Uh-huh. I've had people come up to me, if I was going on after them, come up to me and say, I'm going to bury you. Yeah, I'm going to put you in such a hole. You can't follow me. I've had that, and I'm like,
follow that killer.
I'm just thinking to myself, I never want to be that person.
Right.
It's always
that's arrogant.
I want to do the best set I can, but the next time I play this room, I want the booker to think about which position he's going to put me in.
There's a time to be cocky, and it's definitely not off stage.
Right.
Right? I mean, if you're going to prove something, then you better prove it up there.
Yeah.
It ruins it. I think it ruins it, because if you kill, then you're like, well, I'm not really surprised you told me you were going to. Yeah. And then if you don't, they're like, oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's not a safe thing to say.
It's going to be apparent to everyone in the room what order the show should have been in, and what happened.
Speaking of that, two things. First of all, I've seen comedians in here at House of Bacon. Sam Pelletier, as a matter of fact, who's another booker, and given an avenue. The times I've come here and he's emceeing, I told him this the other night. I've seen him actually get better at emceeing.
I have too.
And every time I come here, he's doing different material.
Yeah.
So he's smart. He's doing it right, and he's moved to Boston. Yeah. So he's.
And it's not only emceeing. Sam is becoming a better comedian. Yeah, all around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like his stuff, man.
Yep.
And he's doing a good job.
Yep.
My other point on your that I wanted to make on or elaborate on what you were saying is in Vegas, like at the Laugh Factory, and years ago the Riviera, but it's not open anymore. Actually Bob Kephart from the Comedy Stop. I don't know if you've heard of the Comedy Stop. There's also one in Atlantic City. I don't even know if it's there anymore, but that was the number one club for many years in Las Vegas. It's where Brad Garrett started, and now he's got a comedy club right across the street. That's another story. But they bring big headliners in to MC, to host.
Yeah, sure.
Because often the headliner is a bigger name than the feature.
Yeah.
And sometimes the headliner is even the biggest name of all.
It's funny you mention that, because the workshop I did with Eddie Brill, who was Letterman's talent coordinator for 17 years and an accomplished stand-up comedian himself, he said back in the day when he was coming up through Boston and New York, that's the way it was. The two best comedians on the show, one would host and one would headline.
That's right.
And then, he's like, why would you take the most inexperienced comedian on the show and trust him to run it for you?
No, not in a comedy club.
Right.
Maybe in a bar or something like that. But yeah, because they're the thread.
Yeah.
Often. I mean, as entertainers, we know we know the headliner's the headliner. But the audience pretty much knows it too from the poster outside, or
Sure.
if they could, but some of them don't even look at that. They just think they don't. A lot of times they don't even know who they're seeing.
Yep.
And sometimes in Vegas, the host is like, "Hey, I watched the Tonight Show. The host is the star." So
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So so that's interesting.
And sometimes it's the host show, too. Like they'll put it together. Like you could have Joe Trammell's Comedy Showcase.
I do that.
You do.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called that. But yeah, and you'll host, and you're obviously the most accomplished comedian on the show, and people are going to be entertained by you, and then you sprinkle the comedians throughout the show.
Correct. And in my case, and I haven't done that here, but I'm getting ready to do it in October for we're going to do Fright Night, Comedy Night, a late night Saturday thing, just the 4 Saturdays in October. I'd love for you to do that. D would be great for this too. But the comics, here's the thing: when I'm doing it that way, because I'm pretty high energy. When I'm doing it that way, the comics have to be on a certain level in order to sustain. Because if I come out like this and then I have a dry, it's got.
I think
it has nothing to do with talent. It just has to do with how it's cast.
I've heard the quote many times in a short time in comedy is it's tough to follow energy.
Right.
And you saying I forget how you described it earlier, but you're a little energetic or something like that. I think you're more than that.
Well,
I think for you to tone down your energy, you'd have to come out laying on a bed or something.
Right. Well, I mean, I do. I've made plenty of people laugh in bed too. But yeah, when like what you were saying about the MC can't be the strongest one in the house necessarily. Otherwise, like you said, so this is. I don't want to contradict myself and then all of a sudden say, well, now I'm emceeing, so I am going to be the star, and you guys are just coming out for a couple minutes in between me, but it's my show. Mm-hmm. That's not it at all. And I don't want to say that I dumb myself down either, but I realize that I'm a thread. So I, when I'm directing it, when I'm putting it together, I put it together to present.
Yeah.
In an entertaining way.
Sure.
I'm there to present the 3 comics. In this case, monster comics.
Yeah.
That we're going to be doing here, Fright Night, Comedy Night. So yeah, and that's fun too. And I like doing that. I like doing the contest. I'm just, introducing comics, but it's fun.
Sure.
I like doing that too. And I've learned a lot out here. I feel like I've basically gotten back down to my roots, because this is how I started.
Yep.
And when I started doing this show in the beginning of the summer, I didn't even know if I was going to do comedy at all out here. A comedy or whatever you want to call it. I didn't know if I was going to, perform at all here, and if I did, when, or if I just came home from Vegas. So when I got the offer to do something here on the weekend, I said okay. And then after the first night, like you said, I got the bug again. Yeah. I got the bug, and I haven't had that bug in a long time. And even all the years in Vegas, I went many years where the bug was gone.
And you have an entirely different audience here who's never been exposed to your type of humor.
Right. I get butterflies again. So, and I appreciate you going back to you as a booker. I appreciate the theaters that you're going to present me. The Main Event Comedy is going to present me. I'm looking forward to that. And it goes back to the venues that you're getting. It's not only bars. You're booking legitimate theaters. So that's a whole different ball game in the comedy world. Because if you're used to bars and stuff like this, and then you go to a theater, how do some of these guys, how do they transition into that? And do you see a difference in how their comedy goes over?
I totally do.
Yeah.
I totally see a difference. Yeah, because a theater is a totally different animal for performance, because you have a group of people who are 100% invested in the show. When you do a bar show, you could have people who are seated at a table that came there for dinner, that came to have a conversation, that came to have a few drinks, and then a comedy show happens. I've been in plenty of places like that where hey, who's ready for comedy? And nobody turns around. Like the tables that have their backs to you, they're like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
And then you start doing comedy. It's just like it's part of the growing pains. You have coming up. And then in the theaters, you have a captive audience that is 100% invested in that show. And I've seen it work for some people who I thought might have an iffy time. And I've seen people who I thought, oh, they're just going to destroy here, and they froze up.
You never know.
I had one person get scared off stage in a theater because
off stage.
Off stage. They were supposed
Before
to do.
they went up.
Oh, no, they were up.
Or they got scared off.
Yes.
They just ran off.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say ran off. They just cut the set short.
Oh, it was like, that's my time.
But I worked with that person in a bar the night before, and I think it ties in perfectly. Yeah, and he did 10 minutes and just laid him out in a bar show in 10 minutes. Had one of the best sets I've ever seen. And then I had him booked for a theater the following night. And he was scheduled for like 10 to 12 minutes. Did about 4. Didn't get any laughs. And then he did a joke that, was a killer. That got a huge laugh the night before, got nothing, and then said, "Well, I'm just going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone," and just walked off stage.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but and I think that's a perfect example of what we were talking about.
It absolutely is.
The theater it's a different animal, and what I love about the theater is like they demand a professional. They demand a show from professionals who are there to entertain them, and if it's not working, they're not going to give you anything.
No.
In a theater, it's you have to earn it.
No, you have to earn it.
Yeah.
And then of course the next step, I don't know if it's the next step. I think they all go hand in hand, but is television, which is a whole different monster altogether. You could be great on television, and then you come live. I see a lot of guys and gals with credits a mile long, TV credits, but then live you're like, whoa, man, you know what I mean? And vice versa. People that destroy in theaters, but it just doesn't read on national television.
Yeah. But
there's not. Is there? Well, I shouldn't say there's not. I'm not a know-it-all here. I don't know anything here. Is there much opportunity to get in front of a camera to do? Besides Wednesday Night Live comedy here at House of Bacon.
Yeah, we have there are 2 shows in New England that I can think of. One of they are simulcast all over the country. One is The Night Show with Danny Cashman, which films in Bangor, and I'm actually on that next Wednesday. We're filming for an episode that's going to air later.
I saw that.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. That show is all over Maine, and I think maybe New England, and the Steve Katso show, which films in Arlington, Massachusetts.
Okay.
They're talk show formats, just like you'll see on Tonight
and clean,
Show.
Keep it clean.
Yes, absolutely.
Keep it like squeaky clean.
TV
would you
clean,
say?
Yeah.
What TV clean local might be different than the Tonight Show, because the Tonight Show is a lot more racy than it used to be. I mean, SNL is. I mean, when you say clean, do you mean like cruise ship Disney clean or
it's funny
innuendos or America's Got Talent? Come on.
I did a show. I was doing comedy for under a year, maybe 6 to 9 months, and I did a show with Karen Morgan, she was a finalist for America's Funniest Mom on Nickelodeon. She's been doing comedy for decades. She's hilarious, and I did a show with her. She was booking some showcase in Falmouth, and I go, "So what kind of material do you like?" And she goes, "Cruise ship clean." And then she walked away, and I'm like, "Wow." She hasn't even seen me that much, and she already thinks I'm doing cruise ships. I must be doing awesome.
Right. Oh man, exactly. That's.
And then I thought, maybe I should ask her what cruise ship clean means.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what that means. And I don't know. Do you guys use that term much here on the East Coast?
No.
Okay, we do. Like a lot of the Vegas entertainers and stuff, magicians, everybody.
Yeah.
It's like there's some great acts that could never go on the ships. There's only one ship. Although they're getting a little bit more racy, but there's party ships like the Carnival, and they have special adult, cruises and stuff. But if you're wanting to be a traveling, jump ships, so to speak, and make a lot of money and do well and make a career out of it, then you have to be TV, like almost Disney clean.
Yeah, I think on the Night Show you can get. I mean, you can toe the line. I remember one guy. Ray Harrington, a great comedian. He travels throughout the country, and I was watching some clips on YouTube from the Night Show because I was curious. This was before my first appearance, wondering what kind of material. they allowed, and he cleaned it up. But his closer was a joke about two men having sex on a couch, and somebody walked in on them. You know, so
Okay,
I mean,
right.
he didn't get too graphic, he didn't get too
Right.
dirty, but the implication was there.
So there was an innuendo, there was insinuations, and I mean, come on, let's face it. Even with these, I mean, I have June who's 8 and Jet who's 5 years old, and some of the shows on. For these kids, I mean, you better not just put it on and walk away.
Right.
I mean, even the stuff for them, I'm going, this shit's funny. I'm hooked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're saying pretty clean. I'm like, for instance, myself, I'm an adult humor guy.
Sure.
I mean, not on purpose. It's just whatever.
That's
whatever
who you
I
are.
feel like
Yeah.
doing. So, but I can easily clean it up for television too. You know, I mean, it's not.
Yep.
I'm not gonna, stick my crotch.
Yeah, you did the
I'm not
Jerry
gonna-
Lewis telethon.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah,
I mean,
and I
you
didn't
can't-
stick my crotch in Jerry's face.
Right. Well, not on camera.
Not on camera. No, that's another podcast. So,
I did want to say something. Thinking back to the guy I was mentioning who bombed in a theater, and the joke that he was relying on.
Yeah.
And he told it and got nothing. And I forgot to mention, but I think the reason why that bombed is he delivered that joke with zero confidence.
That's
It's a
huge.
lot different when you're in a bar and you're killing and you're like, oh, wait for this next one, wait for this next
Right.
one, and they keep killing it and you're building that momentum. But if you're in a setting where nothing's working and you're like, okay, I'm just going to tell my closer now, and then
Right,
you
yeah,
deliver
you
it with
get-
zero, the
the
audience
heart
says,
rate starts
yeah.
going up, and the audience can
Yeah,
sense
so the
that.
audience doesn't trust you that you're going to be funny after 4 minutes of nothingness. So yeah, I wanted to throw that in because
Absolutely.
yeah, I
of
think
course.
that's why
that happens.
didn't work.
That's happened to all of us.
Yeah,
I mean, it's important to. We've talked about this on the podcast. I think it was Ophelia that said, well, if the audience is just drinking, I'll just drink with them, so we can all be on the same level. And not that I advocate that whatsoever, but I'm just using that as an example of if the audience is not. I mean, I believe that I mean, they're there to be entertained.
sure.
But if you're in a room, any room, not this room, anywhere, and there's people in there also, then they should be in there with you.
Yeah,
With
Yeah,
you,
sure.
like
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And if they're not with you, then they're gone.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, but
Yeah, and it made me think of something else too when I was, talking about doing a venue and people just keep their backs to you the whole time. I was doing a show with a guy, and it was up in Calais, Maine, and it was me, Dennis Fogg, and then the headliner, and I did my set, did 20 minutes, went well. Dennis went up, went
Love
well.
Dennis.
And,
Love
and
Dennis.
then, so the headliner goes up, and during my set, there was a guy in the front row with his back to me. He was on his phone my entire set. And I'm like, well, it's a little annoying, but I'm not, I'm just
Right.
going to do my set. And, so then Dennis went up, didn't address it. I didn't address it. And then the headliner goes up. First thing he says is, hey, buddy, why don't you turn around and enjoy the show? And the guy puts his phone down, turns around and goes, why don't you leave me alone and tell your fucking jokes? And then he turns back and plays on his phone some more.
Oh.
And that was like, of course, it's a long ride home from Calais, right? So me and Dennis are driving home from Calais, and about an hour into our trip home, I look at Dennis, I go, so you think he got him back yet?
Oh, that's great.
I mean, the room just got silent.
That's great.
After that.
Oh, I had
Yeah.
I'm so, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is, especially in bar shows, is people on their damn phones.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it happen here with great headliners that have come through here, even with Russo and Dalia, who came
Yeah.
in through here and everything. People on their phones. I have a story when I was doing the Planet Hollywood one night. Lil Wayne was in the front row with his posse, and he had his legs up on the stage, you know,
Yeah.
like this,
Yeah.
which is another thing.
Yeah.
And the whole show, all the way up until I came up,
Yeah.
I'm watching this, and none of the entertainers addressed it.
Yeah.
They just, that's Lil Wayne, I'm going to stay away. And every now and then, and I saw him from the wings and stuff, and I try not to, I don't even like to see the crowd before I go. I want it to be a surprise for me as much as
Sure.
it is for them.
Yeah.
But every now and then, when you start hearing it backstage, oh, Lil Wayne, what an asshole, and this and that. So I look out, and I'm seeing this. And so, he's having a good time and everything. His posse's there and everything. And all of a sudden, he's down looking at his phone. I took his phone and put it on camera mode and took a picture of Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
And gave it back to him. And yeah, that was it made headlines. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So
I've heard a story of Nick DiPaolo when some woman in the front row was on her phone, and he took her phone from her hands and placed it in her drink.
I like that better.
Yeah, Nick. You want to pay attention to Mr. DiPaolo when he's on stage.
Nick DiPaolo. Now going back. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I actually have a joke that I open with about cell phones.
Okay.
You know, the proper etiquette for cell phones, but then it leads into something else. But it just addresses the topic. You know,
right.
About being respectful and keeping your phone. I go up and I say, you know, I don't know if they announce it at the top of the show about the cell phones, you know, putting them on vibrate or turning them off or whatever. I just want to let you guys know that while I'm up here, I don't give a shit what you do with your phones. You know, and then it just evolves from there. But it lets them know that there's etiquette.
Right.
It addresses that etiquette. And I say, while I'm up here, I don't give a shit what you do with your phones. Everybody else, you know, be respectful. But it addresses that, and then it comes full circle. But so I like to open with that, especially if there's been no announcement about cell phones.
Right. Well, you know, in these classes, and of course being around guys like you and other people, where these comics can pick up good habits. It's also very important because we all know about habits, and once you get in the habit of something, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so it's important to form good habits. So some of the comics, providing they're around the right things and they're surrounding themselves around the right things, they're learning about these things and etiquette from the performer's side. But I don't think, I shouldn't say I don't think, but from what I've seen, the little that I've seen, the audience in the rooms that I've seen isn't necessarily educated for the etiquette of going to see a comedy show.
Sure, yeah.
So do you think that, do you agree with me that they're not quite right on par? And
oh, absolutely.
How do you fix that?
Yeah,
well, you fix that with announcements and stuff like that. But do you see that getting better? Or?
You can fix it with announcements. I think stand-up comedy is new to this area.
Right.
Live comedy is totally new to Lewiston, Auburn.
Right.
Unless you've seen, you know, if you go to a Bob Marley show and he comes once a year or whatever, that's
when you're going to see him.
Yeah, your exposure to stand-up. But now, you know, people they're uneducated on how to behave and the etiquette and all that. And, you know, just like I have, we talked about this before, my list of, you know, what I consider do's and don'ts for comedians and hosts and all that. And that's an ever-growing, it's a living document and all that. And just stuff I've learned and I've seen and I try to avoid throughout the years. But the same goes for the audience, too. Like, you know, and we don't have the luxury of being on stage and seeing someone talking and motioning to a bouncer. We don't have bouncers at our shows.
No, you don't.
So I host a lot of my shows. So if a comedian's up there and somebody's being loud in the back, I'll go over and I'll ask them to be quiet. Or if they're going to talk, give them an option. You know, I don't try to be a dick about it. I'm just, you know.
But you shouldn't have to.
No, but the thing is, people don't know. I was doing a show at the Fireside Inn a few years ago, and there were two women who were just talking as loud as you and I are right now during a comedy show.
Absolutely.
And I walked up to her.
Get me started.
I walked up to one of them and I said, "Could you please be quiet? People are trying to enjoy the show. If you want to talk, just go out in the lobby.
Right.
You know, at this level,
right.
At my volume at this level." And she puts her drink down and she looks at me and she goes, "You want me to be quiet at a comedy show?
Right.
That loud?" And yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And she goes, we're at a comedy show, and you want me to be quiet? And like, yeah. So she ended up leaving, you know, within minutes after that because she was pretty upset. And then we went out in the lobby, and she let me know that out of all the comedy shows she's been to, she's never been asked to be quiet and all that. And I'm like, well, that's great. Go to those shows.
I witnessed the exact same conversation when Rick D'Elia was here. There was a girl literally crying in the front row by the time he was done, but he gave her 3 chances. "Ma'am, do you mind just going outside?" and this and that. And then finally he said, "You know, ma'am, But when I said you shouldn't have to, because you've got me on a topic that just I mean, there's really it's going to take time. But when I say you shouldn't have to, I mean there's going to be a time when the MC is going to have to. That's his job or her job.
Yes.
However, if the venue also, we got the audience, we've got the comics, then you have the venue. The venue needs to be educated on etiquette too, and know that their staff, because waitresses and bartenders and staff members and owners and everything, if they don't know the etiquette and they don't impress it upon their patrons, then you're missing a huge link there. So if this certain place that these people are used to, coming to see a real comedy show in what you call a quote unquote comedy club, like the Improv or the Comedy Store, these people walk in there knowing, that we're going to the Improv. This is not, and so they already know because the waitresses, because in some of these venues, it's not necessarily just the people. If the waitresses and the bartenders are screaming,
that happens.
Then
all
they're
the time
going to scream too.
Yeah.
So it starts there, I think.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. And I've heard of some comedy clubs, like in the bigger cities, they'll take your phone on the way in.
They will.
And they put it in a bag, and you get it on the way out.
I think and beaten senseless on the way out.
Perfectly fine.
And all.
Well, no, they'll give it to you. If you know how to think about it.
No, we had an announcement. The show that I was in at Planet Hollywood, The Ultimate Variety Show, and that's the announcement.
Yeah.
And we've used that, and we used that for many years. Silence your cell phones, that. And if you're caught taking a picture or on your phone, the phone will be taken away from you, and you'll be beaten senseless on the way out. But I mean, I think that if somebody's on their phone, their fucking phone should end up in their drink. So it was. Did you say it was DePaula that did that?
Yeah.
So my hats off to him for that. I don't blame him. I mean, and when we get up there and we have our adrenaline, I mean, that's why we're performers in the first place. We're, we shouldn't be too tame. So something like that happens. I don't care if it's Lil Wayne. You know what I mean? You got to do something, right?
Yeah.
I mean.
And with the venues too, like you were talking about educating the staff and all that. A lot of venues, unfortunately, don't care, because especially if it's a show where it's a minimal cover, like a couple dollars for a cover, or it's a free show. All they care about is people eating, and people are eating and people are drinking. Whether their behavior comes into it, it's irrelevant to them. And if you kick them out, well, there goes the $40 or $60 that couple was going to spend.
Right, absolutely.
So that's all they care about. But yeah, if you're presenting a show and you want to be professional about it, you educate your audience, and that's what I try to do too. And you're mentioning the 3 chances that Delia gave someone, which I think is perfect.
Oh, it was very fair.
Because a lot of people don't know how to behave. So whenever there's an issue, like if I'm on stage and there's an issue, my first inclination is always just be nice. This person does not know how to behave in this environment.
They just don't. It's like yelling at a kid that doesn't know better.
Yeah, so you just
you gotta.
People are trying to enjoy the show. Could you please be quiet? And that's why I talk about giving them an option. If you want to talk, please take it out in the lobby or take it out wherever.
It's like talking to children.
Them an option. And then
3 strikes, you're out.
The second time you can be a little more terse, and the third time just get if you're skilled enough to turn the entire audience against this person, which by now shouldn't be a problem because they're fucking up the show. Just go there. But I think everybody gets one chance.
Everybody gets one chance. I think a lot of it. Do you agree that a lot of it has to do with the motif of the room as well? Because there's some rooms that are a little bit more open. So if there's an area in the back, they think that they can't be heard, and it's an echo in the room. So it's not really set up. It's not really conducive.
Oh God!
Environment. Because I know the difference between right here, just even House of Bacon, as opposed to Lava. You go in there, and that's a great room, by the way.
Yeah.
Just like Empire. These rooms. Well, the Empire really reminds me of the Comedy Store. I loved it, where it's very intimate. It's a very intimate setting. It's a great place for an open mic. I mean, I think, or a show or anything, but you go into an intimate room, and you just kind of automatically just act like the room kind of the room kind of has a personality,
Sure.
and you kind of you kind of mix in with it. Like we said, the best clubs are, and you even said, my friend Todd Glass had said it best. The best rooms are movie theaters, not only because of the way they're set up. People may not know about comedy, but they know about movies, because that's when I moved here. That's the only entertainment you could do here in Auburn until you came around. So they come in and they do this. But back to my point, let's just say it's whenever I've gone to a movie theater, especially the ones in Vegas, okay?
Yeah.
It's always them, and they're always the one, and you turn around, and after 3 times, it's 3 strikes you're out in a movie theater too. Yeah. It's like, shut the fuck up. But I don't even know why I mentioned that, but it just popped out of my head.
Yeah,
that's the way I feel, but they do know, and I think that the theater has a lot to do with it and the way it's set up.
Anybody that doesn't know how to behave in that setting, and I think what Todd Glass meant when he said, think of a movie theater.
He means the way it levels up.
It's not only that, but in a movie theater, there's only one thing to look at.
Right.
And that's what's going on.
Right.
If you're doing a comedy show in a venue where they have the Bruins game up here and on the other TV is the Patriots game, and then they have a Deal or No Deal going on, on the other TV. And then there's, by the way, we have comedy too, you guys. Check out comedy if during the commercials there's a comedian on stage.
Right.
Check that out.
Right. No, I understand that. Actually, it would be really bad if it was happening at the same time, Deal or No Deal and comedy. But I know what you mean.
Yeah.
There are different things going on. If there's a bar, sometimes the people at the bar just think, I'm not really here for the show. I'm at the bar, so I'll do whatever the fuck I want.
And you know what? In some cases, I think that's okay, because if I've been going to a bar every Friday night for years, and me and my buddy have been going, and we're talking about the game or whatever, and then all of a sudden that venue decides to have comedy on Friday night, and all of a sudden somebody's telling me to shut the hell up because there's a comedian on stage. Well, that's I didn't know there was comedy there. Me and my buddy came here to have a beer and watch the game, and now you're shutting the game off, and I got to shut up because some dude's on stage telling dick jokes.
I came to a bar to watch politics.
Exactly. Yeah. So that I can see a little bit. That to me is when you're infringing on someone else's good time.
Or they turn off their game.
You turn off the game. Are you kidding me? Oh, by the way, everyone, there's a comedy show. We're gonna turn off the
Patriots
TV.
on.
Yeah. Oh my God. Can you imagine?
The Red Sox are on. Did you really seriously just do that?
In the past 2 years, I've had shows scheduled during the first Patriots divisional playoff game in January. And thankfully, those shows were in theaters. Because if they were in bars, can you imagine? I have 2 people in the audience, maybe.
Right.
Everyone else is at home watching the Patriots. But thankfully, and both those shows, by the way, have been at 49 Franklin, and we've had great crowds for both of them. And the first thing I say on stage is when I get up there, I go, Jesus Christ, you guys don't give a shit about the Patriots, do you? And they're like, no, we want to laugh.
Right. You know if they're there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because I'm like, Jesus, fucking, you guys are missing a playoff game for this. I like football. I'm not a Patriots fan, so it doesn't bother me to be doing shows when there's a game going on. Red Sox in the World Series is a different story. I'm probably going to cancel the show.
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen the pictures of
but
if there's the games and stuff.
And to me, that's like, I had a show a couple of years ago scheduled with Louis Ramey, who's a awesome comedian, and the show was scheduled on Super Bowl Sunday in Connecticut. Patriots were playing the last one they did there. Who are they playing? Oh, the Eagles. And I sent a message to Louis. I'm like, Louis, you realize this is Super Bowl Sunday, right? Is this really happening? Are we doing a comedy show during the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure nobody's canceled it yet. So a week later, I got a message from Louis. He goes, yeah, I think that the venue owner just realized it's the Super Bowl, so no show.
Oh, well, many of the shows, even in Vegas, cancel. I mean, seriously, but the other night when I went to Empire to watch some comedy, which I met him for the first time. The Burge, James
T. Burge,
Burge,
yeah,
funny guy. He was the one angry because he's like, why are we here? Don't you guys fucking realize
Yeah.
that the Patriots are on right now? So in his case, he was the one that was
Yeah.
like, why are we doing comedy? We
Yeah,
should
but
be-
you know, I think at the rate the Patriots are going now,
Yeah.
it's going to be more and more acceptable to have comedy shows
One-
during Patriots
one and
games.
two. Yeah, right.
Nobody's going to give
Yeah,
a shit.
no, I mean,
you don't care. You're a Cowboys
no,
fan.
No, and we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're both 1 and 2. I'm done watching football this year, so
Uh-oh.
we can. That's good though because it just gives more time to perform. So,
But dude, if the Cowboys go on, if they win 3 or 4 in a row, you're going to be back.
well, let me know.
Okay. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a loyal fan.
Provided that win column has some crooked numbers in it, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's wow. I mean, when you're as passionate about this stuff as we are, Mark, it's disappointing. I mean, we only live so long.
I know.
I mean, it was a Bill Murray when the Cubs finally won. I mean, the guy was in tears.
Tears, man.
Yeah, I mean, this shit's real.
Yeah.
People don't understand
Yeah,
this.
it
Your
means-
wife understands it because you guys are fans together.
Right.
My wife and I, she doesn't understand it when I punch
doesn't like
holes in
it.
the wall.
No.
You know what I mean? I mean, you can just go to Home Depot and fix
Right.
it, and she's like, "It's okay, honey. We're
Right.
gonna get. Let's go have dinner."
Yeah.
My wife is like, "What's wrong with you?" She
Yeah.
claims to be. Jessica claims to be a Patriots fan, but
Yeah.
if you ask her next time you see her, "Oh, you're a Patriots fan? Who's your favorite player?" Vinatieri.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Well, that's
like,
not a bad
I don't know.
selection there.
No, but what I'm saying is current.
Yeah.
And I mean, a real fan. And so she. Here's the thing about. Well, I think fans in general, but my wife, as far as the Patriots, I mean, she just blah. When I first met her, she was obviously from the East Coast, so she's a huge Patriots fan. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, great, girl with football, this is great.
Yeah.
And at the time, Vinatieri was playing, and I'm like, right on. She even, she had all the get up and everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And then I come to find out that she doesn't watch the games. She just wants to be the one that can brag about it on Facebook.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people are like that.
But what are they do? They're going to shut up if all of a sudden Brady, the GOAT, is gone.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Belichick.
they're gonna lose half their fan base.
So it's gonna happen with the
how-
Patriots, too.
Look how popular the Patriots became once they started winning. I mean, winning cures everything. Winning is gonna get you a
Winning
lot
cures.
of fans, but
You got to be a little bit.
once
We
they
joke
start-
about it,
Yeah.
like I'm not going to watch a few games maybe and disappear for a little bit, but
But you're always going to be a Cowboys
But
fan.
I probably will.
You're going to look at the standings. You're going to look. You're going to peek.
It's inevitable, Mark.
But yeah, we all know what
Fucking
it's like when
it's
when you're-
inevitable.
when you're-
I don't want to though.
when your team sucks.
No, just let me know. You let me know. I'm
A fellow
sticking
comic
to my guns.
came up to me and he goes, I'm really worried about you. I'm like, what are you worried about? He goes, well, you're a big Sox fan, right? I go, yeah. And he goes, well, what's going to happen if they bow out in the divisional round or, don't have a deep playoff run? It's going to crush you. I'm like, dude, no. I've lived through 78. I lived through 86. I lived through 2003.
Right.
And I never thought, and when they won it all in 2004, it was like you're breaking the 86-year curse and all that. And I watched the whole thing and it was incredible. And then, like, the following year, I wasn't into it as much because I just had the ultimate sportsgasm.
Right.
Because nothing in my life, I don't care if the Red Sox win the next 10 World Series, nothing in my life will be as good as 2004.
No, right, yeah.
Because you've lived, it's just like the Cubbies when you said,
right.
Bill Murray was crying because you lived with all that heartache. You lived with
well,
Steve.
you cry during sex too,
Absolutely.
and then there, and you like you said sportsgasm. So afterwards, you just kind of caress their back the next year, and then maybe in a couple of years later, maybe you'll have another one.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Or
but
never.
it's not going to be as good as the first one, right?
Right. No, it's
So, yeah.
no, it's never going to be as good as the first one. But it should be.
So I'm assuming you became a Cowboys fan with. Were you always a Cowboys fan, or were you with the Aikman years, Emmett, and Irvin?
Well, this is an interesting question. I should first address that if there's any way that I fit in out here, Mark, it's because I think you know this. I'm a Boston Red Sox fan.
Right on.
So well, let's just go through this, and then I'll get to the Cowboys. if
Okay,
you don't
cool.
mind.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm a Boston Red Sox fan because I played baseball when I was younger, and all the boys were, of course. I grew up in Phoenix, so as a young boy. and of course everybody. What team do you think that a bunch of boys that don't have, we didn't have the Diamondbacks at the time,
Right.
So take a guess of what team they picked.
Dodgers? West Coast?
You would think it'd be West Coast.
Yankees?
No, it's the Yankees.
Yeah.
Right. So, I don't like to follow the herd. I've never followed the herd in anything I do. So I was like, Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
And so I decided I was going to be a Boston Red Sox fan when I was really young. So as far as baseball, and of course we had the Phoenix Suns. Mm-hmm. So I have a very diverse. It's very confusing. You're
sure.
Like, because especially the people out here, because most people are Celtics, Bruins. Red Sox and Patriots.
We're a passionate bunch,
right?
Here.
I'm Phoenix Suns because I'm from Phoenix, and we actually did have a professional team there when I was growing up. As a matter of fact, I did some halftime performances for them, but when Barkley was there. But and then of course I was a Boston Red Sox fan, and I became a Dallas Cowboy fan because my dad lived in Dallas when I was younger, and when I went to visit him. He always took me. He would take me to the games.
Oh, cool!
And we're talking about
Roger Staubach
and Tony Dorsett, and
Drew Pearson.
So I got to see that.
Yeah.
So all these people later on, when they made a big comeback in the '90s, because it was '70s, '90s. Let's see. I think we're ready for another one.
Yeah.
But so in the '90s, when everybody was wearing the cowboy hats. And everything. I'm like, I've been wearing mine since the '70s. Everybody's being accused of jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
I did not jump on the bandwagon whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I've never really had an actual hockey team, but I've always loved the Bruins. But now, of course, since I spent so much time in Las Vegas, I'm really excited about the Golden Showers. I'm excited, and of course, I'd like to see them do well.
It's too bad
just because the Raiders are coming in, I'm never going to be a Raiders fan. I don't care. I don't care if they moved here to Auburn.
Yeah,
that's never going to happen.
It's too bad they can't televise the Golden Showers games.
Yeah,
they're on pay-per-view.
Right.
So
yeah, they're on.
Bad.
They can't. We had it here at Wednesday Night Live for the first 4 sessions. Yeah. So I'm having a good time with you, Mark. Though I really no. I mean, seriously, it's changed. Yeah. I mean, now we're talking about sports. This is.
I know we've.
Yeah. But I'm. I've been having a good time doing the podcast. I've had a good time working with you. Really looking forward to 49 Rumford. It's going to be my first theater.
Yeah.
So, and like I said earlier, and like you said, there's not a lot unless you're Bob Marley or some of these guys that have been here for years and they've got a huge following, so they can perform in these
right.
big venues.
Right.
It's a great opportunity to be able to do that, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. I've had so many questions for you, and we've always got a damn guest here, so I can't. No.
Pesky guests.
Let's just do the podcast. Let's just do the podcast like this for a few months. But there's been so many questions that I've wanted to ask you, even since I moved here. But you're busy, and I'm busy, and the only time we really talk is when there's a microphone in front of our mouth. Yeah. So, gosh, it's just, what do you think? Maybe one that I've been wondering is, so we talked about new comics,
yeah,
and some not so new, and some that have been around. What would be your advice for a comic that wants to really grow? And of course, everybody seems to be in a race to get out of here and do as many Boston gigs or get out of here as possible. But I think that's kind of sad. I think of course you got to branch out and you got to get booked elsewhere and maybe even tour the United States or beyond. But I think there's enough here for a while for somebody's career.
There is. There's a lot of opportunities here, and people are taking advantage of that. But what I've found, like in the past few years, especially, I went through a stage where I had a decent video, 5 to 7 minute video, and I was submitting to every festival and contest I could, just throwing it out there, and I think if you want to know where you are in comedy, get out of your state.
Get out of your
You know,
state.
and I think it's good that people want to go to Boston and they want to go to New York or whatever, because it's either going to make you want to continue or it's going to make you want to quit.
Right. That's the true test.
And in both of those situations, whichever one you think, just do it.
But don't go too soon.
Don't, well,
Unless it's an open mic or something.
yeah, I mean, even if you go too soon and it makes you want to quit, your skin's not thick enough. You
Right.
shouldn't be in comedy.
It was just like boxing. You get out there with
yeah.
somebody, you get a wake-up call, you get
Yeah.
knocked out. You're either going to, like Rocky says,
you're
like
yeah,
Rocky Balboa, you're going to
you're
get
gonna
up.
want to get, and I love this saying. It's stupid, it's cliche, but I think of it a lot. It's like you can get better or you can get bitter, or you can get bitter or you can
Better
get
or
better,
bitter.
whichever
or
one you
better.
want, and you can,
Or you can do it at the same time.
yeah, which I think bombing for a comedian is great, because that's your barometer.
Oh, it's great.
Are you gonna let this affect you?
No.
Are you gonna make this? Are you gonna let this make you want to walk away from stand up? And if you feel that, then by all means get out, because you're not gonna have any fun moving forward. If you bomb and you're like, I'm better than this. I gotta write more. I gotta get to the next level or whatever that is. Then you have it. You have that drive. But if bombing makes you want to quit, I hope you do. And I'm not saying that to be a dick. I'm
right,
saying that
because you don't belong
because
up
this
there.
is not for you.
I mean, you could get knocked out in a boxing match too, and maybe the next day saying, "I don't fucking know if I'm ever going to do this
Sure.
again." But the true test of your strength, I think this is for anything in life. I'm not in no means a life coach, but I believe that there's a time. And if you bomb, you don't just wait 6 months to go back up. The best time to go back up after you bomb
The next night.
is the next night.
Sure.
And or even better than that, I think we talked about this with Vinegar. If you're bombing, unless you're the host, and but if you're in a situation where there's a time to get out and say, okay, I tap out. And then, But yeah, you could do it, or you could do it right there on the microphone if you're really good. I've seen some greats. As a matter of fact, they used to do it on purpose back in the day at the store and the improvs and stuff. Late night, they'd go in there and like Sam Kinison would purposely
Sure. Yeah.
bomb
Yeah.
for 15 minutes
Yeah.
just to see.
Just to dig himself
Oh,
out.
they play games.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But so you gotta have thick skin when it comes to that. But I think also in comedy you got to be transparent, and you have to have thin skin too. I think most of us. Do you have thin skin or thick skin?
I think my skin has thickened throughout the years. It's like there's nothing that I can experience now. I've done enough shows in weird situations where things haven't gone well, or you think it's going to be great and then it's shit,
Right.
And you just eat it for however long your set is,
Right.
20 minutes or whatever.
You don't let it hurt your feelings.
No, because I know I'm a comedian. That's what I am.
Right.
It's in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a bad set, it's not going to ruin me.
Right. No.
If
right.
I don't care if people are throwing things at me. When I get off
'Cause you've had
stage,
both.
When I get off stage, I'm going to know I'll get them at the next one.
Right, absolutely.
That one wasn't my show.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, to elaborate on that, to these comics, like you said, you hope they do, and I agree. I'm right there with you. I hope you do too. But if you're a comic that's been doing it for long enough, let's just say you're a headliner, you've got that hell gig story.
Sure.
If you don't have that hell gig story, then you have.
If you're a headliner, you should
you
have a book full of hell gig stories.
Yeah, for me, the moment I don't think getting a standing ovation is not the moment you've arrived. The moment you've arrived is when you bomb.
Yeah.
Because if you can
When
pick
you
up
bomb
from
and come
that,
back,
if you
sure.
can come back from that, now you've learned. Because I've had bottles thrown at me too.
Yeah.
One of my very first concerts that I started when I was in Phoenix. I was really lucky. When everybody else was getting open mic nights, I was being invited to open up for people like MC Hammer, and Two Live Crew, and I would go from that to Garth Brooks country and all that. So I had a diverse. There was a place called the Celebrity Theater that was there, 3,000 square foot theater, and it was in the Round, okay. And where was I, by the way? I lose myself. Where was I? Because I want to make this point.
Talking about coming back.
Because when we have guests,
from a
I just
bomb,
kind of
yeah.
I just let myself lose it and then
Sure.
you bring it back. But now that we could just between, I was talking about bombing.
Yeah, and coming
Okay.
back from that.
So I because I go off on tangents, as you very well know. But my very first one was Steppenwolf, and I chose the wrong material to open up with,
Mm-hmm.
and I had and I was recording that night from my new tape. I'm
Yeah.
like 3,000 people.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome.
This is gonna be a great. I had like a 5-camera shoot, the
Yeah.
whole thing, and while bottles are being thrown at me and hitting me in the face, and I'm bleeding, and I just kept going because I'm like, I'm making a promo tape, man. And I'm smiling. It was a great promo tape.
Yeah.
I actually did turn them around.
Yeah.
But I've got those too. I came back. The next show after that was 2 Live Crew, and I'm like,
Yeah.
if they threw bottles at me, what's 2 Live Crew going to do? Especially
Yeah.
if they heard what I said during this podcast today. But so I went out with a mask, and I'm a dancer. I'm a b-boy.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
that's where I started.
Yeah.
That's my roots.
Yeah.
And so I put a mask on and gloves and a clown mask, and I came out on a pogo stick. I came out on a pogo stick, and I started dancing. Boom, pa, tum, ka. And I'm doing the whole thing, right? And everybody's like, ah! And I took the mask off in silence. And it was during that silence I knew I had them.
Yeah.
And they just went. They went from ah to ah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Now they're like, we can't go back from here. So yeah. The Steppenwolf getting the bottles. You say you've actually had bottles.
No.
But you're using that as
haven't. As
right.
an analogy, I haven't had bottles thrown at me, but I've had, situations where you feel like you're holding the audience hostage because they are just not into the show at all.
Right.
And it wasn't set up properly or whatever, or you're not doing well. Any number of factors can come into a show that everyone regrets. But we've all had those.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, I haven't had anything thrown at me yet. I'm sure those days are probably coming. But when a show's not going well, everyone knows it, and it's just your ability to bounce back from that. And I see people coming to who have done workshops that'll come to an open mic. I see them like 3 times, 4 times a year. They'll pop into an open mic. I figured I'd try it again. I figured I'd try it. It's
Try
like
it.
just try
Either
it.
do it or don't. This is not
But at the
something
same time, don't waste your time. And that's not. Open mics are for everyone. I just
Try though.
But stand up is like it's either part of you or it's not.
You got to be all in.
Yeah.
Try. Come on, try.
Yeah,
Try.
yeah.
You don't go back to jiu-jitsu classes. Yeah, I'm just going to go back and
Exactly,
try. You
yeah.
better be
Yeah,
you better
yeah.
be alert, or otherwise
Yeah.
you're going to get your ass kicked.
Exactly.
You know what I
You'll find a
mean?
foot in your face.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and both in a comedy club and in a jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah.
Here it is. Joe flew east. Joe flew west. Joe flew over the cuckoo's nest. Do you have any other questions?
Do I have any other questions? Yeah. Don't you have to go to the bathroom?
I do.
All right.
But I often, like you said, Don, I often have to go to the bathroom
right.
while I'm on stage too. But no golden showers on that show. Don't worry.
No.
Well, I'll try to keep it safe at 49 Franklin.
I need my safe space.
Your safe space.
Yeah. If I get offended, I lash out.
Oh, yeah?
Then, yeah.
You need your safe space.
I do. I need
you
my
consider
safe space.
You consider a comedy club a safe space, Mark?
Joe,
No.
once I hear one of my trigger words, I'm out the door.
It's
But
boom.
first I'm going to leave a Yelp review, a scathing Yelp review, and I'm going to let the club manager know exactly what I think of him and his performers and the people
Right.
that he books there. And then
Yeah, really?
Oh my God, are you?
Well, okay. This brings me on to this. Okay, this was a question I wanted to
Joe,
ask
you
you.
have to pee.
This is another question that I wanted to ask you. No, it's all right. I can hold it.
Okay.
This is another question I wanted to ask you. So with that in mind, it's hard to to go when you're booking them and you're creating these shows, and you know the etiquette. It is really hard to go see a show and just sit and enjoy it without you looking at maybe all the things that are going wrong and wanting to do something to help, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you start producing shows...
Probably when you come see Wednesday Night Live.
No, I do that with every show, just like every set from a comedian. It's in my nature to like, and that's why I have the Titus 5. That's why I provide an open mic. It's like I want to make the scene better. That's why I have that list of things that drive me nuts. People can do whatever they want. They can wipe their ass with that list. I don't care, but it's just I had to get it out. I have to get this shit on paper. It's the stuff that I know will make the show better. There's nothing on that list that you can that if you do everything on that list, it's not going to make your show better. But if you refrain from doing the things on that list, your show is instantly going to be better. I know that. Right. Like, nobody can convince me otherwise.
Absolutely. And they shouldn't have to. No, absolutely. No, yeah.
Yeah, but every show that I attend, it doesn't even have to be comedy. If I go to a concert, and I see things going on, I'm like, that's what I am. But I'm a producer, as well as being a comic and a host and all that. But when you produce shows, that's just... I think it should be in your nature that whenever you go to it, whether it's your show or it's not, you sit back and you take in all that's happening and you figure out ways that you can make it better. I do that at every one of my shows that I produce. I'm like, is this show up to snuff? Mm-hmm. Is it the best it can possibly be? And while the comedian's on stage, all I want to hear is laughter. Every whatever. If it's a few times a minute.
Hopefully not a rock concert.
If it's hopefully not a rock concert. Absolutely. Yeah, so if I'm at one of my shows and the comic's on stage, I'm thinking about, other things. But if I don't hear laughter for a couple minutes, I want to know what's wrong.
Right, absolutely.
Why isn't that happening? I'd like to, and that's one of the things that, a comic will have a good set and then come off stage after, hey, did you hear my new bit about blah, blah, blah? What'd you think of this? And I didn't hear a word of it.
Right, I was too busy.
Yeah, I'm thinking of other things. I'm not really there, but I'm glad you had a good set. I didn't hear the new bit, but if you want to run it by me now,
I was too busy trying to find the headliner because he was outside smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. So there are things like that as a host and as a producer you have to worry about. You want to make sure that nobody's getting out of line in the crowd. You want to make sure the crowd's having a good time. Is the wait staff talking to people at an appropriate level, all the things we talked about.
Right.
Is the lighting good? Is the sound good? The guy I have, Mike Mickelon, who runs Johnson Hall, it's like, I'm surprised by the end of the night he just doesn't punch me in the face because I'm going up to the sound booth, at least 3 or 4 times a night. Know. Hey, can you bring him up just a little bit? Because everybody's different on the mic. Right. Some people talk softly, some are pretty loud. So I'm constantly going up there asking Mike to adjust the sound level, and it's like I'm just waiting for that time when he's like, "Hey, will you get the fuck away from me?"
I can appreciate that, Mark, because I'm right there with you. I'm a real, and Don, of course, is too, especially when you have a lot of music in your performance too. Yeah. But I'm a real stick. I mean, sound guys either love me or hate me.
Yeah.
If they're on my level and they understand, then we get along, and if they don't. It's, like you said, I'm bugging them way too much. If I have to ask you more than, a couple times, then I'm like, come on, But you have a thing, okay, well, on the show, something that you refer to every show as the hell gig. I think we covered those. Yeah. So I do have, if there's one major question that I'd like to get out, from you is, and I know we're probably way over, but is how does Mark? We talked about how comedians in general grow, and of course, Maine event comedy is growing, but your comedy career is growing at the same time, and you're starting to branch out, and well, not starting, but you're juggling owning a business which is Maine comedy, and it's a big responsibility because you got a lot of comics that are. And it's not just shows. You do workshops and all kinds of competitions.
Yeah.
I mean, you run the gamut. And then, is there time for Mark to? Well, of course there is because you're providing time for yourself to do shows. Okay, so you have that. Even if that's all you had, that's great. But like you said, you got to branch out, which you're doing.
Yeah.
How do you juggle that? And how How do you juggle that, and how do you feel about that?
I love it. To me, there's nothing not to love about it.
No, that wouldn't be.
You know, I've gone from begging people for stage time to them seeking me out.
Right.
And there, to me, as a comedian or as any performer, there's no better feeling than that. Than
Right.
to, you know, see your phone light up and there's a message there. Hey, can you do this show? And blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Absolutely. You know,
Right.
yeah, check my calendar. If I'm open, I'll do it. Rather than, you know, me begging everyone for stage time. And, you know, with my shows, when I go out and host them, that's when I can, you know, polish up the jokes that I'm currently working on, or, you know, try new material, try some getting into the crowd a little bit, strengthen that muscle. So yeah, I love hosting.
Of course.
I will never not love hosting, because
Right.
to me, that's part of producing the show.
Oh, I love it too.
If I'm hosting the show, I'm part of the production.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and I love working with people who take it as seriously as I do and are as professional as I, you know, like to be. I just did, you know, Johnson Hall with Brian Brinegar, did his game show. Brian was there an hour and a half before the show started, putting tape on the floor where the table goes,
Right.
getting things off stage so they're not in sight lines and all that. And it's like I just love
He's a
working
pro.
with people who are like that. Yeah,
He's a
who
pro.
are so professional.
Right. I mean, like you said with the sound guy, the only thing I'm probably worried about is being a pain in the ass. 'Cause
Yeah.
you know, because I'm gonna have a lot of questions, and I'm gonna want to get there a lot earlier.
Yeah.
I want to be the first one there, you
Yeah.
know. But of course, I don't have a key to the place, so I have to
Right.
find out what time it opens, because I'll be there at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But I guess you answered my question, sort of. I mean, obviously, no. Maybe I didn't ask it the way I needed to, but and I know you're probably getting asked. You want to finish this up.
No.
But I just no, because this is no.
I'm
I
antsy by
guess it's
nature.
because you're very good at what you do as being a producer, from what I've seen, and very organized, and that's awesome. And it takes, I mean, let's face it, just that alone is enough to just your cup is runneth over. So I guess, you know, and now that it's growing, and you have people like Brinegar's and Julie Pullins, if you get called to do another gig and you're not headlining somewhere
Yeah.
else, then you can entrust that the show is going to be run the way
Absolutely,
Maine
yeah.
Event Comedy
I
gives
have,
shows, and go out and do it. So
Yeah.
so what, like you said, what is there not to love? I mean, if you could go to Vegas tomorrow, almost, if you
It's-
right.
To me, it's the best
So you
thing in
don't.
the world.
You're free. You
Yeah,
feel completely
I can't-
liberated.
Yeah, I can't imagine, you know,
Liberating.
not having this in my life now. Now that you've, you know, you're making me think about it now, and it's like I can't imagine not doing it or not. I love producing
Oh, I
shows.
know. I see
and
that.
I love, you know, and within the past couple of years, I've been headlining shows, which has been just awesome, because it's great to have that leeway to go out, and that freedom to go out and just stretch your legs a little bit. You know,
Right.
I got a 45-minute set. This is going to be awesome. I get to have some fun with these
Right.
people, rather than, you know, doing a hosting set where you're going to be worried about the whole show.
Right.
Or you're going up to do 10 minutes and you're trying to think, okay, what makes a 10-minute set? Can I take
So it's a
this chunk
treat.
and that take that chunk? So yeah, and now, you know, when people reach out to me to headline a show, it's like, okay, now you're starting to feel like all the work was worth it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I'm entrusting the, you know, half of the show, or, you know, 3/4 of the show to you. I'm putting
Right,
your
absolutely.
face is going to be on the poster, and, you know, so that's a huge responsibility, and I take it very seriously, and I'm very grateful for it. But it's also nice to be recognized where you're at that level now.
Right.
It's like, rather than, like I mentioned before, people seeing me do a headlining set and then come up to me after and go, I've only seen you host. It's like,
Right.
yeah, that's the progression. When you've been hosting shows for a few years, eventually you get enough material to
Absolutely.
put it all together.
Oh yeah, you sure do. So you're on track as far
I
as
think so.
for
Yeah.
your career.
Well,
Do you have?
I've always thought that wherever you are in comedy,
There
that's
you
where
are.
you belong.
There you are.
You know, and people who come up, I'll get messages all the time. Say, yeah, I'm a headliner. Give me a spot. Okay, sure. Do you have any video or audio of a recent set? I'm not familiar with you. Yeah, I really don't have any of that. Okay, come do an open mic.
Yeah,
and I'll check you out.
or go somewhere else and film it. One or the other.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. You know, I'll have people reach out to me for gigs just because they live there. Or, I can bring 6 people.
Just because they live there.
Okay, none of my shows are bringer shows. So
Right.
that, are you funny?
Right, right,
That's kind of a requirement.
So is wherever you are, there you are.
Yeah,
So is there? But are there? Does Mark Turcotte have separate goals as far as you being a headliner and performing, and then a separate goal for the company?
Yeah, I don't.
Do they go hand in hand? Do they grow at the same time?
I think they grow at the same time. They grow organically. I don't call myself a headliner. I'm not Mark Turcotte, headlining comedian. I'm not, because if you and I are on the same show, who's the headliner? It's not me. If me and Dave Russo are on the same show, who's the headliner? It's not me.
No, I'm just closing.
I can sure. I can be the quote unquote headliner for certain rooms, but to me that's a pretty weighty title. It carries a lot of weight. And
from what I've seen on from the flyers and the posters, it seems that when you do branch out, it looks like you're headlining. That's why I said that.
And that's
why I said that.
Yeah, and that's great, and it feels good to know that the work is paying off. But I just think wherever you are, that's where you belong. It just happens organically.
Right.
I don't think you can just force your way anywhere in this business. If you start calling yourself a headliner and somebody books you to headline, and you eat shit for 45 minutes.
Right.
Guess what? You're not a headliner.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can tell people whatever you want.
No, you
but-
close. As a matter of fact, in the vaudeville days, they had 7 acts. It was a variety show. It was the last act. There's 7. Was the one that they used to say performing for the heads. In other words, people were walking out while.
Yeah.
So and that's why that's where the term headliner came from. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, it makes sense,
that's
doesn't
interesting.
it? It used to be, so.
I just think that's
Hopefully that's not going to happen at 49 Franklin.
that's a term
on Saturday night.
That's thrown around, just for people to stroke their egos.
Right.
But not, if you.
I don't like the word headliner.
If you're closing a showcase, that's what you're going last.
Right. Absolutely. If your picture is the biggest one on the flyer, you're probably closing.
Yeah. That's the way I look at it. If your picture is the biggest one on the flyer,
Or the only one.
you're doing the most time.
Right. Yeah.
Of everybody.
Right. You better be. Yeah. You better not run off stage.
Don't run off stage.
Yeah. I don't care how good you are, but let me ask one more question. God, I just keep going, don't I, Don?
The next podcast we do, it's going to be all about Vegas.
All
and
right.
all about
you could. I mean, we could definitely. This could easily be edited in 3 sessions, and we
Sure,
could kind of
yeah.
sneak them in there in between some of our other
Yeah,
stuff. But
yeah.
I mean, you're the producer of that part.
Right on.
But and you're very good at it. But let me ask you, Gotham. What was that experience like?
Gotham was phenomenal. Gotham, it's like, you asked me if I had a goal, if I had a plan for comedy, and it's like I've already accomplished more than I ever dreamed of. Like in the 6 years that I've been doing it. I never like when I did my first open mic, when I did the workshop, I'm like, yeah, if I get a few gigs here and there, it'll be great.
Right.
I had no idea, like some of the people I'd be working with, and some of the places, some of the venues I'd be performing in. Just it blows my mind that I was able to do that, and it's I'm very grateful for it. But Gotham was incredible. I got into Gotham because I won a contest that over. I think there were thousands and thousands of people that entered. It was a joke writing contest.
Mm-hmm.
And you would write for 3 months. You would just consistently write jokes for this site called Comedy Wire. And they would post topics. There were topical, headlines from newspapers. You would write essentially monologue jokes that you would see on the Tonight Show.
Well, that's one of your expertise.
And that's what got me into it, because I have some stories in my stand-up, and I don't use one-liners in my stand-up for a lot. If I have to get a quick few laughs, I'll go up there and throw some one-liners out. But to me, it was a writing exercise, just like roasts. Don was talking about roasts earlier.
They're a great practice.
I love roasts because it's a completely different animal than
Right.
stand-up. It's a writing exercise for me. I don't.
Often people go up there with their notes on stage when they're roasting.
And I roasted Joe DeShane a few months ago.
Oh, you did?
I beat him.
Okay.
I just want to throw that.
Okay, give me the best line real quick. Give me the best line real quick.
Okay. So you have to kind of know Ian Stewart for this to work, but it was the one that I ended the set with, and I said, Joe was voted the hardest working comedian in Humboldt County. And Humboldt is actually the marijuana capital of the world,
That's
right?
true.
So being voted the hardest working comedian in the marijuana capital of the world is a lot like being a headliner on an Ian Stewart show.
Ah, I heard.
He gets it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that same joke was thrown around the other night.
Okay.
So it must have worked
Well,
good. I mean,
maybe.
different versions of
Different versions.
Just different versions of
but
that.
the thing about Joe, it's like I don't really know Joe. We performed on some of the same shows. I mean, we know each other through the scene. We don't hang out. So I had to do my research on Joe. Like if I'm going to roast somebody, I'm writing jokes specifically for you.
Right.
I'm gonna scour the internet for everything I can find on
Right,
you,
of
and that's what I
course.
did for Joe.
You have to.
I found that little snippet where he's voted the hardest working comedian in Humboldt County, also the marijuana capital. I'm like, there's
You're
a
like,
joke right
bingo.
there. Yeah. So yeah, that was.
Of course, you
That
have
was-
to go
that
there.
was pretty
You have
cool.
to go
So, yeah.
there. So back to the.
So yeah,
So then you won the competition,
writing thing,
and you.
the writing thing. So I entered this contest, and I did nothing but write these jokes for like months, and then at the end they whittled that field down. And I want to say, I can't remember the exact number of people that entered. It was between 4,000 and 5,000 or something. It was a huge contest. So the winner got a spot on Gotham Comedy Live. So they whittled the field down to 10 comedians, and I made the top 10. Which, with that, I was just amazing, right? It's incredible.
Absolutely.
So then they took those 10 comedians and they accepted videos from them. They requested videos from them so they could be viewed by Chris Mazzilli, the owner of Gotham Comedy Club. So then he looks at all the videos, and from those videos, he's going to take 3 comedians that he wants on Gotham Comedy Live.
Wow.
And then I get an email saying that, congratulations, Chris loved your video, and blah, blah, blah. They gave me some comments that he said, he loved my writing and all that.
You
which,
must have been jumping up and down.
Dude, I cried.
Gotham.
I cried.
Of course you
I
did.
sat on the couch
You
and,
did a
and
Bill,
I cried.
You did a
yeah.
Bill Murray.
Yeah, so that was...
Better than the Red Sox winning.
That
again.
that was incredible. So yeah, my wife and I got to go to New York City for a couple days, did Gotham, and it was amazing.
Gotham is, if not, definitely in the top. God, even from somebody
Yeah,
in big cities.
I think it
even
was
from, everybody
CNN
wants
said
to
it was
perform there.
the top comedy club in the country.
In the
One of-
country.
I got to perform.
So,
I went to
and the Laugh Factory and a couple of those, but it's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the Cleveland Comedy Festival,
Yeah.
and I loved. Shout out to the producers of that festival, because a lot of festivals you go to, you get one performance. Cleveland, I was on stage 5 times within like 2 or 3 nights, and one of those nights I was at Hilarities, which is another
great,
top
wow.
10 club in the country. So I got to perform at Hilarities like 3 years ago, which was just incredible. So yeah, I got to hit the road with Louis Ramey for a little bit, who's one of my favorite stand-ups of all time. Got to work with some Boston legends, Mike Donovan, Bob Seibel, Dave Russo. God, who else? I haven't worked with Lenny Clark yet, but I'd love to. I love Lenny.
Lenny's great.
Yeah.
We get to see Johnny Peasy in a couple months.
Yeah.
Okay, so you being a producer, and since we were talking about clubs, why do you think that why do you think it is voted? Why would it be called the number one? As a comic, do you agree that it deserves that, and why?
Well, I can tell you.
Not just because it's in New York.
No, absolutely. I can tell you that Gotham is the best club I've ever been in. I mean, Hilarities was great. Hilarities was a little
why?
weird, a little weird. Why was
is it
Gotham
the best?
Because
you were there.
yeah, absolutely. I think Gotham was the best because they obviously know what they're doing. The room is set up wide instead of deep, which I think is perfect for comedy.
Yep.
Yeah, you have the stage. You have the stage against the long wall, and you have the bulk of the audience.
Unless it's a movie theater.
Right, exactly. So yeah, you want a wide room. When they started seating people, they sat them front and center first, and then fanned out
boom.
from there.
Yep.
And the lighting's great, the sound's great. The audience knows what the deal is. If you talk, they throw your ass out.
Right.
Yeah, and the service was great. While I was on stage, the service staff was coming up and taking drink orders and all that, and they were like, "Would you like another drink?" Blah, blah, blah. Not, "Hey, what can I get you? You want another drink?"
Right. Exactly. No, they and this kind of as a callback from earlier in our discussion. They know.
They do it
run
right.
Like,
It's a comedy club. You're there to see comedy,
Yeah.
and I've always said the stand-up comedy is the most fragile of all the performing arts. it's the most fragile. You and I can go to a concert and talk our way through the concert. Nothing's going to happen.
Nothing's gonna happen.
And we'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
any other art form, you can go and you can kind of just get through it. But comedy, if you're not paying attention, it's not going to work for
Right.
you.
No.
You can't sit there and talk through the first 5 minutes and then tell the comedian he's not funny. Well, you're not paying attention,
No.
dickhead.
Right,
You know?
exactly. And in club, and in clubs like that, if somebody's talking, the MC just in a club like that, it happens so fast that the MC will look around and go, "Where'd he go?" Because he got taken out.
Yeah.
The rest of the audience shouldn't have had
Absolutely,
and that's what they're there for. And so the bouncers or even a waitress will say,
Yeah.
"You got to go," or an owner.
But, and that's what we don't have in Maine. We don't have, blah 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 comedy club.
Right.
That's
Do you think
it's
okay?
Gotham Comedy Club.
Let's end on that.
Sure.
Do you ever see that happening in this in our? Well, I say our. I can't believe I'm saying our now.
Yeah, look at you.
Our fine state,
You're here,
3,000
dude.
miles away from Vegas.
Yeah.
Do you ever see that happening in the future? And
I don't know. It's tough. Yeah, I can imagine just being in the restaurant business, or it's got to be tough. I mean, I have friends in it and all that, but to make a club solely for the purpose of stand-up comedy or for any kind of comedy or
solely
entertainment venue, I don't know.
So what would you?
I would love to see it happen here or in
Right.
Portland or something like like it used to, like we used to have. But I wouldn't want to be the guy.
Oh,
to
so
do
there
it.
used to be one,
Well, I'm talking about the Comedy Connection.
and that was considered a comedy club.
It was. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
First and foremost,
Sure,
not just an
yeah.
entertainment venue center, which is great.
It was
that-
comedy.
that does-
It was the Comedy Connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it happened then it could certainly happen now.
I hope so. Yeah.
Me too. Because on the West Coast where there's the Improv and there's comedy stores and just Laugh Factory and I mean Vegas,
Yeah.
they're Brad Garrett's. I mean they're all like that.
Yeah.
So we never talk about. Oh, you think there will be a comedy club? And I never even asked. That's like That's like asking the difference between a comedian and a comic. It's like to me, I'm like comedy club. It's like out here it's comedy night. But what is a comedy club to you? What is considered? Because I keep on saying we wish we had a full-time comedy club. Is that the amount of number of days it's open during the week, or what do you consider that? I consider it 7 days a week, and where I'm from,
you look at
and 2 shows a night, and it's comedy.
Yeah, how the comedy clubs in the bigger cities operate, and that's how they do it. Early on in the week, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they'll have showcases for newer comics. They'll have open mics and
Roast,
maybe hosted by an accomplished comedian.
Mm-hmm.
So they can have some notoriety there, and then Thursday through Sunday, it's legit headliner driven comedy shows, and like you said, a couple shows a night. Maybe one on Sunday, but. Yeah, that's what it is.
Now, if it happens here in Maine, what city is that most likely going to happen?
I don't know. I would love to see it happen here.
I think it's growing here.
Or in Portland, but you need, you need to be in that market.
Right. People drive from Lewis and Auburn, L.A., to Portland to see entertainment, but very few people from Portland drive here to see entertainment, and so it would that mind shift would have to change in order for it to work.
Yeah.
So I've had a great time.
Me too,
man.
man.
I can't believe we've only been doing it for 2 hours here almost.
I know.
But it's been great.
Don's taken 3 naps already.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, Mark.
Yeah, buddy.
I appreciate it.